Welcome, and thank you for joining the Internet of Value Foundation New York, episode 176. And thank you for everyone who comes to listen to this information in the future. I hope you guys find it as valuable as I know I do every single day. The diverse amount of mindsets and perspectives that get to join me in this space, in these conversations, and the dialect we get to share with each other. Probably going to be a quick one today. We'll maybe keep it around 45 minutes to an hour, and we'll wrap up there so it's re-listenable uh, for other people in the future. And two titles in the space, of course. Happy anniversary for the XRP ledger today, which is 13th anniversary that we have for the official date of the open source XRP ledger operation. And with that being said, yeah, I mean, feel free anybody to come up. It's going to be more of an open forum, and if we shall, we'll touch on the title slightly throughout the space. But I'll let some other people join in first. Shellfish, welcome.
Happy anniversary.
It was strange when you put it that way, but yes,
Is it? You put it that's
it felt directed. I'll put
I
because put it that way.
okay, well, I don't know. You do we not say it like that? You want me to say happy birthday instead?
Well, it's happy anniversary to the XRP ledger. It's not to me. I mean, thank you though.
Aren't we all the ledger? I mean, can we claim it at this point? Just like we're all Satoshi, can we all be the ledger?
Sorry about that. Was a technical difficulty. I think I fixed it. Perhaps not.
No, no, I can hear you.
All right, we're back in order. Welcome, guys, to the space. Feel free to come up. Yeah, of course, today is a great day. We have every day's a great day, but today is the XRP Ledger's 13th anniversary. And do a short space. Gonna keep it 45 minutes to an hour or so, open forum, and I will touch at some point on the initial title I have up top, the Matrix of Reality.
So what does it mean to you? Is the ledger a mature network now, do you think? It's past its elementary stage and is moving on, graduating to a mature network, whatever that may mean.
Well, I think most of all, what comes with maturity is typically trust, and it's trust in the patternized organization of the actionable states in which you believe to be this object, and it's even relative. Like when you take it out of computation and you bring it to the philosophical means of just our interactions that we have every day, the trust that you garner for someone that you've known, say 20 something years or so, is typically compounded over that period of time where you've had observational proof in your analysis that this individual does what they say they're going to do, and I have a trust towards that, and I know that this is going to be the actionable state in which they represent based off of all this past analytical information that I have. This is the most probable. And simply put it, when you think about a financial instrument as well, that trust is definitely something that is garnered over time. And 13 years, of course, 13 being an interesting number to where we've hit a milestone itself. But yeah, I think Warren Buffett actually is somebody who has a similar rule to this, where he says typically before he's going to invest in anything, he wants at least 7 years of some sort of historical data about it. And of course, we're past that on the 13-year mark. But yeah, nonetheless, it's an anniversary, and it's a time in which we have a historical place marker for.
Love it.
What does it mean to you, shellfish?
Um, well, if I go by your birthday analysis, typically it's just another day.
Perfect. I would agree.
Well,
And
there you have it.
Sasha, please. Oh yeah, yes, yes. You have it. We have it. Sasha, feel free to come up though, man. I always love seeing you in my spaces, and I will roll over to the first sentence that I've written up there in a couple minutes, and and really, I really just want to today, at least myself, talk about the thought in which we think about reality as a matrix, being a substrate of architecture in which reality or the universe is a pillar of formation of levels between the matrices of time and space as we think of it to be, and these matrices of these different levels and compounding effects, the means of our understanding of them and the complexity behind these interactions, and what meaningfulness can we of course take from them and then utilize and make into our own actionable steps. And so it's just something I think about, and something that I think becomes always very apparent to me in times of great hardship and also triumphant beliefs and philosophical approaches. And this underlying substrate, this platonic space of manifolds in which births the reality of our perception as we see it, the place and where we go, is it what we want it to be? And like I said, in these times of tribulation, at least that I've witnessed in my own perceived existence, I think they start to become more apparent and also approachable by masses in these sequences of events.
Well, it's fun, like just seeing all the different tool sets that the ledger has acquired. If you look at it like a human, and the growing pains and milestones that a human would come across, we've had a lot the last few years, specifically like NFTs and memes and the AMM, and kind of look forward to seeing what's going to happen in the next few years. I don't know where we're going, but the community is growing, and exciting times ahead.
That's right. RWAs. That'll be probably the thing for the next 2 to 3 years. This real world asset tokenization, right? This bringing of the structural, actionable steps in which we've already taken to place ownership and belief over particular objects, and digitizing it, and not only digitizing it but making it interoperable with all other systems that could pertain to a similar patterned organization set. Yes, yeah, really. I think that'll be the next 2 to 3 years before AI just completely, large language models and agents completely just take over, and nominally, things like CK rollups and things like that will already be prominent, and we'll be we'll have more of the I think innovation side of the blockchain space really start to probably occur in those kind of formats and places.
You used to talk about flywheel effect, or network effect, often in the early days. Do you think with the AI taking over, because you're saying 2 to 3 years out, Do you think there will be an overnight moment where singularity or ASI or however you want to call it happens, and it's a matter of I mean, right now we went from years to weeks and months. Do you think it'll be like an overnight moment where it's like instead of weeks or months, we see days where it's just it may not be an over the night, but like maybe it will be. Maybe with AI, that maybe that's the overnight moment that we kind of have on the forefront.
I think everyone has their own singularity moment, but it's very interesting to think that could something actionably, say, take processes and steps that occurred in less than what we perceive to be 24 hours, that changes the technical dynamics of the way that we think of technology. I think it's a no and a yes answer, because the thing is as fast as something can come, it's as fast as it can go. If all you need to do is plug it in and that's it, we're there, shellfish, like just plug it in. You can also unplug it, right? And so I think there's a reason for the computational irreducibility of our reality, and the fact in the manner of to think about it like this: if you were to create a simulation that would give you the landscape of our reality, right, the everything to the replica down to the atomic substrates, right, every single atom being accounted for, you would need the same amount of energy in which our universe takes to be able to produce all of these actionable steps and properties. And so it's very difficult to just, essentially say, okay, here we are, like, we're done. And it's more so like this compounding effect, just like you had mentioned beforehand, where, it's a Merkle tree of actions and probable steps. And through those probabilities, we get this perceived notion of the wave function execution, and what we perceive, of course, that comes from that. um, I do think, though, at the same time, everybody, in my own particular belief of what a singularity is, which is just a perceived moment of change, everybody will have that own moment, I think, as well. And we all do. I mean, we all, people have these euphoric moments, and these all these different kind of yet emotional but philosophical substrate identifiers that come about for whatever reason in their belief of perception, and that be it, just part of the larger tree of things.
Do you think we're going to come to a point where we won't need the data storage because we will be able to instantly see from those Merkle trees and reside in a constant flow state? So that way the historical data would not need to exist anymore?
I think the historical data will always exist, and it's almost something similar to if you thought about yourself as a object. You are a compounding effect of whatever we believe to be the historical, precedents that led up to you being able to be you. And so, I think there's a thought in, if you kind of mean compression, that I think is occurring. I think we're watching that happen in reality, through the ability to understand compression, even even from a uh, neurological substrate, being able to increase the comprehensional ability to compound information and essentially compress it. I think we've seen this happen in our society with social media and these very short clips that bring this large amount of satisfaction, to a large number of the younger individuals in our society. And at the same time of that, depending on the content that they're viewing, they're able to compound and compress a ton of information in such a small period of time. And so the right information given in those periods that are absorbed could be potentially like magnitudes more powerful than you know people studying for what could be thought of as decades in the past to retain and understand this analytical information.
So fascinating.
The compounding never ends. And then you can even think about it like this. So, reality in itself, as a uh, compressionary unit and state, think about the Big Bang, right? What was the Big Bang as we think about it, or what started our universe? If what was the initial state in which nothing became something through that energy production? And I think the thought of like these compressionary states existing, both as a manifold in the substrate of the quantum reality of whatever our metaphysical, you know, reality is, and in the quantifiable of the perceived notion of reality and its information that we're bound by. Um, I think they're both like really interesting states and metrics. And Sasha, I got you to come up, so I'm really glad. Welcome to the Space Though, man. And then we'll jump over to you, Vamsy. Welcome up as well.
Yeah, I love where the conversation's going, and it sort of ties into my question to you. Back to actionable sort of insights or actionable properties of these various energetic principles in combination with the younger generation, and how you can encode within, let's say, a meme, or within a clip, a variety of sort of echo transmissions that have historical context to them, and you can bring them to light in the present moment. The It's not a concern really, but my question to you is: there's a lot of talk these days, as far as oversight is concerned, as to getting granular with data to a point where human behavior and the pattern emergence of what happens if this nugget of information is presented to this person at this time, you can kind of contour the selective outcomes to ensure profitability, or to ensure a desired outcome, and bottleneck the natural emergence of that sort of state of existence. So back to my question, because it's a loaded one. It's like, how how is that? How can we approach that differently? Knowing that that is the case, and that there are organizations and individuals who are intent on sort of padding the direction that the emergent qualities go. But if you'd like to remain free and clear of that, and prospectively also have the youth remain free and clear of any bottlenecking that may be incurred, how do you go about tackling that beast?
I really love the question, and it's important, right? Because it's very similar to how do I go through the everyday societal pressures without being incentivized and then manipulated to do something that I may have not done without this particular batch of information that hit me at the right time and location. And I would say it's could be looked at as one of the unfortunate processes of what's needed for the duality of opposing or opposite actionable steps and processes to be to be brought up on an awareness spectrum. And I almost think that, Sasha, if we didn't have it, right, if society wasn't in this particular position where there is that exact thing going on, then there wouldn't be people like you who are saying this exact thing is going on. Do we want that? Right? Because that's the biggest question, right? Do we want that as a society? And unless people are aware of that, they can't know if they do want it or don't want it. And so I almost think that it's interesting because it was brought up earlier in a conversation. It's almost this question of, does the word exist until the action happens? And I would say, relative to the way that we perceive perspective, no. If the action occurs, and then our belief of what we need as a hive mind organizational structure creates a word for it, and then we all try to agree upon this word so that we can have a similar experience in states. And I think this is just part of that progression, that Merkle tree of, like I said, you could look at it as somewhat of an unfortunate necessity of states, but it being equal in experience and less in quantifiably for where our future may be.
Well, the irony there is that yes, it is the tree falling in the forest, and we now have if there's just one individual, or even if there was a drone, let's say, surveilling that forest, and the tree fell, and it is recorded, then the surrounding city and the civilization, they don't need to hear the tree to fall in the forest to have verification that it did. However, that is an ingrained sort of uh, concept that the shared consciousness seems to drive with, as far as substantiation of a word or concept or an idea. And yeah, not trying to rewrite the wheel there by any stretch of the imagination. It's the constraint on the individual, um, the mobility and the free roam of the individual and the prospective future that shouldn't have to be subjected to that same old trick that is always interesting to work around and develop new ways. But yeah, I love the answer that you have and love this conversation too.
You're the best, Sasha. I always enjoy when you join, man. And Vamsy, you had your hand up. If you'd like to jump in, and then we'll go over to 888 and welcome 888 as well.
Oh, hi. I'm sorry, I was just kind of doing something else. But yeah, earlier, two things, Death Ranger. I've heard you kind of repeatedly say the Big Bang and something coming from nothing part. That I kind of take issue with. I just wanted to have a little bit more understanding when you say that, what you really mean. Do you mean our physical reality, or just in general, because something can't come from nothing? It was just a way of consciousness expanding, to create the reality of whatever, that we're experiencing. But I just didn't know where you were coming with that. And then also, I initially raised my hand because of the RWA piece, because I'm very, very much involved in all of that stuff. I'm a seed investor with companies, and a lot of people don't know the extent of the problems it can solve, because you can actually create your own revenue streams with collateralizing your own assets on chain. So for example, right now, like my money with the bank, I can take loans out against my assets that would be on chain. So individuals, without having to do that with banks, can do it for themselves. So, but yeah.
Yeah, decentralized lending and borrowing, definitely something super cool. So the interesting thing is I would ask the simplistic question of what was there before there was something.
There was consciousness. There's always been and will always be that. And how it manifests and what it creates is that's what we are.
Well, so
But
what was there before consciousness?
there was nothing. It's always been
Yeah,
there.
yeah, you did it. I know you didn't want to say it, but you said it because and this is just how my brain works as well, right? It's down this Merkle tree of questions in which the underlying truths seem to be what would be looked at as a fallacy of the reality that we exist in, and I think it's really it's almost beautiful in some sense of if you like riddles, um, but nonetheless it being such an important factor for something to be there, because for us to even have the word or belief perception of nothing, well, then that means there is a duality for something to exist. And if there is a something and a nothing, then that means there is a sum that leads to a whole. And, I think we align on this part where we do very much so believe that we are all part of the sum in which leads to that whole. And I would agree also that, consciousness is one word to use. I like to, metaphysical layer, platonic space of minds, sacred geometry, the quantum layer. I think all of these terminologies we use, of course, words being the means of expression to just create a relatable, actionable existence, but the underlying kind of substrate in which we're explaining being something very similar to the way that we think about it.
Um, well, don't say consciousness, just say energy. I mean, if you just break it down to simple scientific principles, and I mean, that's what Einstein said, right? Energy can't be created or destroyed, and something can't come from nothing. So you have to just start there as a basic principle.
Love it, love it. And Einstein was a very brilliant physicist, but there's actually been an interesting amount of things that, of course, that he said, which
But
were
there's more.
proven in other ways,
But there's
in other cases. But yeah, energy is like, I like the term, right? Energy. It also fits the picture, but it also still raises these questions. All of these things that we've spoken about so far, right? From the starting point of something that began as possibly nothing, which was obviously still something. Um, what is
okay,
the
okay. Define
underlying?
the nature of nothing and define the nature of something. If you can do that, then we can have a conversation. And the other thing is even Niels Bohr, when he did an experiment to understand what time, the nature of time is, he found that it was moving both forwards and backwards at the same time. So time also does not exist.
Correct. It's relative to our perception, and of course, our perception possibly be it of a part of it, a delusion, which is the illusion of reality. Yeah, I very much so agree with that. And everything existing all at once, as well as nothing existing all at once. I think they're both equal in state, in which the duality of something needs the duality of nothing to exist, or everything would be something. And for everything to be something means it would be everything, right? But what would be the opposite of everything?
So is there duality in nothing? Where
Of
did you
course, because nothing can exist without something. What are you comparing it to?
No, duality only exists in the something that is the reality that we experience. And the nothingness that you're speaking about, which is a consciousness as a whole that we're all connected to, there's no duality in that. The nature of duality is only the reality that we experience and the separation between the two.
Your reality is relative, is it not?
Pardon? Who is that?
Your reality is relative?
Yes, relative to our personal experience. I can't,
That's right.
yes, in terms of
So
what we're experiencing.
you can't walk in someone else's shoes, right? That would be cognitively dissonant of you.
Absolutely. Who's speaking?
Oh,
Oh, that
it's
was
your friend Sasha.
Oh,
It's
hi,
God.
Sasha. Hi,
It's
Sasha.
it's God.
God's good too. So yes, so I didn't understand the question.
Well, you can exist in and outside of time, can you not? Like we're existing right now in a version of a conversation that exists within a time frame, and we can also simply not acknowledge that time is a boundary between the communication from one another, correct?
Correct. So I heard a great analogy once is that you have to consider ourselves like our higher consciousness, like an octopus with its tentacles dipping into reality. So we are like one of those tentacles. Our experience is like that, where you can, the nature of reality is that we're living in terms of that part of our consciousness is that's it's to kind of dip in and experience this, but we're always connected to our higher consciousness. So when we remove ourselves from thought, and thought is what's creating our reality, then we're much more in touch with our intuition and our higher consciousness and what and how that guides us. But that's like, kind of pieces of the puzzle there in terms of what consciousness is and our experience of reality and how it connects back.
Yeah, you've acknowledged in brief here that the construct of time as we know it is really nothing, right? The numbers attributed to it, even though there is semantic resonance, of course, and it's like a continual understanding of it and compartmentalization, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, it doesn't. It's relative. It doesn't align with a higher sort of understanding of what time is functioning as on a quantum level. Or maybe it is. Maybe we don't know yet. But that duality allows for us to sort of roam about in a state of nothingness and something simultaneously. So I agree with a lot of what everyone's saying. I just don't see the hard foundational logic and like the nothing argument being being nothing. Nothing is something because it's evident in the way that we just operate minute by minute. See, I did it right there. I don't even believe in minutes.
Again, I think I was just asking for the nature of how you define nothing, um, to really be able to break down that question. So I guess,
We're experiencing it. We're experiencing nothing. That's my suggestion. So you don't have to define that when you experience it.
okay.
Well, I think we could, I like that, Sasha. It's very like, I was trying to think of a word to describe something beautiful, but I'm just going to say beautiful, right? Because it's very similar to life is nothing, right? Everything perceived as a notion of existence is both something and nothing simultaneously. And to it be it, it is what you then make it. What are the great parts about that being nothing to something? Oh, but sorry, 888, you had your hand up. I'm so sorry about that. And then Larry, please.
Wow, this is an amazing conversation. Thank you. Very refreshing. So, what I like about these conversations is hearing everybody's interpretation of what they think is, you know. So, I will certainly share mine. Um, w- I'm a very simple person, right? And I try not to over intellectualize existence or semantics about metaphysical concept, because in its simplicity we are simply extensions of source. What that source is we will never know, but we know all at once because we are it, and we are it through every breath, every moment, every experience, every goosebump, every the key is our emotional guidance system as human beings. We chose these bodies, we chose to come here to experience what it's like to be in these dense, heavy bodies, where the truth is we are just that energy and that extension of all that is, period. Just like literal dust in the wind. We're floating in the middle of nowhere on a fucking rock to our limited perspective, as because we are human beings. So the over intel fuck, I can't speak. The over intel in help.
Over intellect. Right?
Thank you.
Got me.
Yeah, thank you. Is too it's too much, you know, it's too much. So dumbing it down, bringing back things to simplicity, um laughing at a fart, um crying because, you know, you got to meet friends that you've connected with. It's about connection. It's about how you feel, smell, taste, and experience this planet. That's it. And you can over intellectualize it. There we go, as much as you want, but that is the great simplicity of it all. Um, yeah, and yeah, that's just my perspective as a Buddhist. And you know what is taught about, you know, the practice that we do as Buddhists is to uh, gain merit, is to, you know, to have that experience of the repetitive, of the um, you know, living on the path and doing what, following the footsteps, right? All of those admirable things, but really the practice is to practice on emptiness, because the emptiness is where you find source, and there's no greater feeling. And then, yeah, to connect with some of you in this room as we did over the weekend was nothing sheer of powerful, and you know, a true testament of that, of those moments, in my opinion.
I love that 888. That's right. It's all about life being experiences and lessons, and I think it's a definitely a very important thing. And I'm glad you guys had fun this weekend. Larry, please feel free, man. Jump in.
I love that 888 had such a wonderful source building opportunity, both to experience and to observe. And it is in the sharing that observation that we really do align towards stated goals. And it really does simplify. But to the point of before, my most recent thoughts on this question are duality requires a duality. So you could say that existence and non existence is one example of a duality. But for me to feel that it's a full duality, it needs its matching pair. And for me, as I've been looking, the way I've most recently matched is on the concept I would call continuum. And continuum is itself its own duality as one, let's say, goes from 0 to 100% on anything through a basic calibration. But I think the process of continuum, which may express itself through energy or some other form, um, is the matching duality that complements the basic duality of existence or non. So I've been trying to really focus on how to map those two ideas. Um, and that's kind of my thoughts on that.
I loved it, Larry, because this is actually where I go to, right? This understanding of the compounding effect in which all these symmetries of this vector space in which we believe to be reality is proportionate to what our actionable processes can be to then make changes in which we would like to see, be the outcome of our reality. And how we learn to be able to measure and quantify those changes in state is what will allow us to have the tool sets to be able to make these differences in which we will be able to articulate in actionable processes, these states in reality in which we want to see, and of course have a manifold over. um I Yeah, I think it's where we're going. It's a lot of what I think about, and I think why these conversations are actually just so important. It's interesting. Could you go back to the way that you look at them from two different approaches, as you mentioned?
Well, most of what's been discussed has really been essentially debating the continuum of 0 to 1. Does something exist? Does it not? And where does existence come from? Changing of state. Um, and let's assume it's 100% valid because there's no reason it can't be. But for it to be a duality, in addition to the duality that it's been described, it's also dual with something that has nothing to do with that conversation on some level. So I was searching for it, and this has been in the last year, maybe ish, that I've really locked in on that it's the continuum, um, which is its opposing or complementary, I guess it would be, duality. And the idea that the way that that's expressed. For example, you could take a continuum and it could literally have one gradient between the two, on off, be a 0. You could give it one notch and you have two ways it could be a basic A/B test. You could have it that it's 3, you could have 5. You could actually design two completely different ones. And as you have seen, because you filled out standardized forms, the concepts of choice have changed through the years, and they all have their own psychological components associated with them. So, being that that's the way the world is broken down anyway, why not leverage it? Understand, like, what does being a 4 really mean? What does being a 3 mean? Or as you're describing, what does being a 2 mean? It is the 2-ness that I'm focused on because it needs its pair.
I love it. I love it, Larry. And So interesting that you've been going down this pathway, and this is like the first time we've had one of these very interesting conversations about it. A continuing being something that, I believe to be part of that illusion in which, the perception of reality is built upon, and reality itself being so important for for exactly what you were just asking beforehand, these understanding of these the comprehension of all of this different articulation of reality, and its meaningfulness, and what can we do with that. Oh man, loved it, Larry. The shellfish, please go ahead and jump in, and we'll go back to you, Larry, if you'd like to.
I was just trying to bring it back to the matrix and the XRPL. Maybe bring in quantum computers and qubits at this point. I don't know if that's okay to kind of cross over, or would you like to stay with Larry's thought?
No, it's
I
definitely
love
relative.
I love in space. So please,
Okay.
exponentiate.
Okay, so well, Vamsi was discussing with Death Ranger the thought or lack of thought, existing all at once, right? And I mean that's where we're going with quantum computers and trying to be able to have that sustained um, ability, right? Like 1 0 or a yes no maybe, all and nothing at once, and uh, maybe that's where we're going right now. That's basically the singularity point that we're moving towards. Like it's figuring it out as we're figuring out how all of these can exist. Like all of these Merkle tree timelines, we are in essence like co-creating those realities together and trying to figure out how to get there. Because we certainly haven't figured out how they exist. I mean, it's one of those questions. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first, the thought or the lack of thought? So, with all its with all the power in the world and all the time in the world, that's where we're headed, right? Like, how does everything exist all at once and nothing? Where does it cross over? Um, yeah. So there's where your gates are, right? The yes, no, maybe 1 0 and both or nothing.
Well, I do like it because it's all about the probabilistic outcomes, and when you think about quantum computers, right, what we're trying to quantify between the operations of one zeros and nulls, if you will, both states existing at the same time simultaneously. It's also in reference to the thought of how Larry was speaking about this illusion of duality beforehand, right? And but it's also important uh, belief in the way that persistence of time and space are relative to us, and so being part of this foundational aspect, which is the the manifold, and which is one of the layers of our reality. Um, it would, yeah, both of them being something very interesting because quantum physics and in general, thinking about like a vacuum space, knowing that even in a vacuum space, there is some sort of quantifiable energetic states in which seem to be apportionating themselves from nothing, right? Essentially entering the vacuum in which there was nothing to become something, allowing for some sort of quantifiable measurement to be taken, and it's one of these important factors in thinking about us developing these tool sets and these different means of being able to measure space as we persist through what we believe to be time, and being able to make that time exactly what we want to see it to be.
Well, we always are trying to get to that state, like whether you're in yoga and you work out to the point of exhaustion and getting the mind quieted to nothingness, or you're on a swing and you're doing twina, like push pull, and you're looking for that state of weightlessness. I feel like that is the null, right? That's the crossover point that the two intersect.
Well, you make such an interesting uh, thought from like an approach standpoint because you're talking about it from both a philosophical approach and a neural substrate approach. Almost the thought of your neural plasticity having a comprehensional or some sort of actionable step of processes similar to what we think about happening in a quantum computer, right? There's all of this probabilistic states in which eventually then the perceived notion of what actually happens, and you then grow a synaptic connection from it. Yeah, it's something I've definitely seen studied and talked about when thinking about neuroplasticity, but there's also like neurons in the gut and there's neurons in the spine, and so there's an interesting complexity to even think about where the actual mind even is inside of one of us as a homo sapien.
Well, maybe that singularity point is kind of like everything going back into a centrifuge and turning back into a stem cell almost. Like it confuses everything, so everything is nothing and everything at once. Like when you spin stuff around, right? Like it confuses it. Does that make sense? It makes sense in my
Yes.
mind.
Yes, yeah, and I think it's also going to play a huge role when we think about biology and creating biotech operations, in which the enabling of releasing certain frequencies and directional anatomical instructions to cells to essentially reorganize themselves and reappropriate thought of those actionable processes and steps to create what would be that persistence in notion of what you believe to be your identity. um, Definitely something I think is coming in the short term, actually, too, like 2 to 5 years.
This has been an excellent space, Deathinger.
It really has, and I appreciate everybody who came up to speak today. The questions were awesome. Everything was on fire. It was a great one. And on top of it all, today is XRPL's 13th anniversary. So I know I mentioned it beforehand, but just another notch in the bucket for the XRP ledger. And I hope to be back tomorrow with some more spaces this week. We'll see how the week goes. But either way, I hope everybody has a great rest of the night. And I love you guys. It was a really fun, it's a great conversation today. Sorry, I try to stay away from saying that word fun.
Thanks for having me.
Night, everybody. Thank you for
Night.
coming.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Good night.